All righty, we are live. This is Comics and Variety, Indie Comic Stream number 6. I am Doc Hogg, and this is Our Boi Gr8 Lott, aka Jeremy Lott. We are going to have Mike Barron with us shortly, just waiting for him to enter the room. He's ready. The writer of Iseult is ready for his roasting. He was worried about it. He tweeted us, and did you see my response?
Oh, that's yeah.
Oh, hi, Mrs. Lott.
Hey, just 1 second. I'll mute this real quick. Okay.
We have.
Hey, Daddy.
Yeah.
Is that Jeremy?
Yeah, you want to come over and say hi real quick? Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good.
Good to have you with us.
Is that Mike?
Yes, it's Mike Barron. Come on over real quick. You can say hi. Come on.
Mike and Jeremy there.
Why are Mike and Jeremy there? Because we have more than 2 guests. This is my son. Say hi to everyone.
Hi.
What's his name?
This is Charles. That's
Charles.
yeah.
Hey, Charles.
You know Jeremy. Okay. All righty. Well, we might as well just get to it. A couple of let's see here. Share screen, application window, and yeah, here we go. All righty. First up, just want to mention again that we still have a fundraiser
What
going
happened
for.
to that car?
Yeah, car was in an accident. Have this fundraiser going for Alejandro Alex Garcia, who is working on the comic book Johnny's Law. If you can donate anything at all, and there should be a link to the fundraiser in the description below. Next up is just want to promote my comic book Tilt, which is on Indiegogo now. It's been up since Saturday, and I've had a fair amount, I will admit, luck. I am already to 31% of the way to my goal. There's a couple of once we're done with Mike's comic book, I'll play the commercial for this, but you can some of the different
Hey, Daddy.
what's big guy? What up, big guy?
Who's that?
Who's who? This guy?
Mike Barron,
That's Mike Barron.
the living legend.
He's written Batman comic books. You like Batman, right?
We have some.
Yeah, we have some Batman comic books. We do.
We have some Batman kind of bikes too.
Yeah, he's actually written them. DC has actually hired him at one point to write Batman comics.
And don't forget the Flash and many other comics.
Big deal. No, they haven't hired me. I'm just a little man compared to Mike. Sorry to disappoint you. But I've written my own comic. Yeah, you don't care.
He will.
Yeah, I know. And at any rate, okay, this is the standard cover for Tilt.
Yes. So this comic is going full tilt, people.
And yes, and this is the variant cover created by Jeff Craven. Both of those are available. I'll be talking more about some of these. Yes, you like his dog? What's the dog's name, Mike?
What dog have we got here? Who's here? Oh, that's Freddie. That's Freddie. Freddie, say hello to Charlie. Freddie, say hello to Charlie.
He's wagging his tail.
He's wagging.
Yeah.
My dog is Tex.
Yeah.
My dog's
All righty. A couple of the comics we're going to review tonight is Peter Seckler's it's Iseult, and the other one by Steve Conley, The Middle-Aged Sword Troubles. God, I love that sword. God, I love that subtitle.
Yes.
It's really indicative of what's inside this comic.
It's pretty great.
First, let's get to OffWorlder, which has been written by Mike Barron. This comic and my comic have a little something in common. Jordi Armengol was the main artist for OffWorlder. He wrote drew the standard cover for my comic book. Some of the best money that I have spent on it. Just a fantastic artist. They're 29% of the way to their goal. Still got a ways to go, so let's very much try to get them there. I have read the script to this. It's excellent, and seen all the inked art, not the finished color. It's outstanding. It is really an outstanding comic, and Mike's going to tell us more about it. Why don't we just start with the standard cover here? Just tell us a little bit about this, Mike.
Well, that's Geordie's interpretation. He came up with that design on his own, and it's Henry Gunn, who's the Scotsman defending his territory. He's at the top, striking down at a Viking invader. When we first meet them, the Scots are trying to repel a Viking invasion, but that's just the start. You know, I have this blurb here. Hang on a second, boys. Whenever somebody says I have a story, my first question is always, well, what's your story about? And when that happens, you have to be ready.
Hey, Charles, a little quieter, bud. Okay.
So tell us about your story.
Yes.
7th century Scotland. Henry Gunn leads his clan in a ferocious battle with Viking invaders. But with victory in sight, he is ripped from space and time by an alien race. The Anunnaki seek a champion to stop another alien race from conquering all known space. Aided by the Egyptian goddess Sarah, Gunn undergoes a hideous transformation, becoming something other than human, able to move through time and space at will, yet unable to save his wife and child. The fate of civilization rests on the shoulders of a troubled demigod. In the tradition of the stars, My Destination and the Silver Surfer, OffWorlder is a star-spanning science fiction saga that will keep you riveted from first page to last.
Okay.
Now, it's not my idea. This was originally Ben Henderson's idea, and it's one of his ideas he's been had with him for many years. It was kind of vague when he presented it to me, and I do what I always do when I'm presented with a story is I work up a detailed outline. That wasn't the outline. That's the blurb. The outline is more detailed.
Okay.
But the outline is designed to be just as entertaining as the book itself. Well, not quite. You don't get the visuals. But when you hand people your outline, it's got to be fun to read.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've seen some of your outlines. They are fun. The comic that this most reminds me of that's currently being published is Exo Man of War. Can you talk about that at all?
I'm not familiar with Exo Man of War, although I wrote many books for Vanguard back in the day. Exo wasn't among them.
Okay. Yeah, you have a guy who's I think he was a Viking or something, and then he was taken into space, and then he ends up coming back to Earth, but with powers and that sort of thing. These are some broad similarities, obviously, but I just wondered if you were familiar with what's going on with Exo. Okay,
I'll check it out.
While we're on this subject, really quickly, Mike. I mean, just tell people a little more about yourself and your history in the comic book industry. Just give us a nutshell version, if you don't mind.
Well, I broke into comics in 1981 with my partner Steve Rude, with whom I created Nexus, a cosmic executioner 500 years in the future. And Nexus is still being published today. The next edition will be out in August when they publish the compiled newspaper strips. Which is something Steve came up with several years ago. I also created Badger for First Comics. I wrote Punisher for Marvel, Flash and Deadman for DC, and Star Wars for Dark Horse, among other things. But I would prefer to write my own characters always. I think that most creators would. And I'm happy to be still involved with Badger and Nexus today. Yeah. About 10 years ago, I turned to writing novels, partly out of necessity. But since then, I've just been a novel writing machine. I've got like 10 novels in print, including 7 in the Biker series. It's hard-boiled crime. I have 3 horror novels, and I have Florida Man, which is kind of sui generis.
Very cool. And is there so this comic book? It's kind of a mix in the sense that it is someone else's idea, but then you took and made it your own.
I made it as compelling as possible. My goal whenever I write something is to grab the reader by the throat and drag him into the narrative to the exclusion of all else.
Okay.
And I believe I've succeeded. If I don't think I've succeeded, I don't let it out of the house. Do you hear those dogs?
Oh, yeah. I'm glad to know I'm not the only one with some background noise. All right, this is the cover B, I guess the variant cover. Can you just briefly tell us about this?
I don't even know who drew that.
Okay.
Somebody terrific. I mean, it's terrific art.
This Massimiliano Veltri. Who knows?
Yeah, great. But that's something Ben commissioned last year sometime, I'm pretty sure. And it's a stunning cover. He also has another artist called Narwhal who did another cover that's stunning too.
Yeah, I love Narwhal's stuff. He does very, very good work.
We reviewed his book, about 2 weeks ago? Both you and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Earthbound is, very good. So
right, move on to the. Well, go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead.
Question, Jeremy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of jokingly described this book as Braveheart in space. Is that, how far off am I?
That's very fair. I welcome that description. They say there are only 7 plots in all of fiction. They keep going over and over. Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy wins girl back, revenge, you killed my father, prepare to die, and 5 more. I don't know if that's true or not, but certainly the human condition and drama in general deals with what we know. And classic conflicts that are of importance to everybody. And that's what drama is. It's life-changing moments. It's life and death decisions. We in the science fiction or comic book community like to take those ideas as far as we can with no limits on the human imagination, which is why science fiction exists.
That's true.
Absolutely. All righty. Tell us a little bit about this page here.
Oh, man.
You're going to have to expand it a little.
Oh, yes. The woman behind Henry Gunn is Sarah. She was an Egyptian princess that was driven out of Alexandria by a Muslim invasion, which happened in the 7th century. Okay. And that's her impetus, and her gods and her religion, which gave her a vision of Henry Gunn and said, you must find this guy. He's the only person who can not only save you, but save the human race. So she sets off in her little Phoenician boat made of reeds, and they leave the Mediterranean and sail up the coast and eventually find Scotland. In order to prepare for this, I read about ancient Egypt, a biography of Cleopatra, so that my depiction would be accurate. And when you do that, the more you know about a subject, the more tools it gives you, the more it enriches what you want to write. And I was able to find some stuff there that I put into the script that I think's never been done before, and is pretty exhilarating.
Okay. This is with Gunn and his wife.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about this, because you've got a nice little subplot going with.
Well, he loves his wife, but when Sarah shows up, inevitably there's tension, and she feels neglected and jealous.
Is it sexual tension?
Pardon?
Is it sexual tension?
There's always a little sexual tension, although this is a PG-rated comic, and there's nothing to offend anyone. But that's part of the human condition. That's drama, is when you have men and women in the same story, there's always that undercurrent there, and you can bring it forth or you can ignore it. You can have people that are all business, like this new War of the Worlds series on Epix. I don't know if anybody's been watching. It's pretty bleak, by the way, but I noticed that they have a lot of female leads in there, and they're in positions of authority. They're doctors, they're scientists, they're military. And when they're on the job, there's no sexual tension because everybody's a professional.
Okay. What's
going on here?
I think this is his conflict with the head Viking. Hang on a second. I got to find out that guy's name. Hrathgar.
That's a strong name.
Hrathgar the Terrible. I've been watching Vikings for years. I wonder what suddenly went off the air. Hang on a second. Vale Myerick is calling.
Okay.
Vale. Good. Can I call you back? I'm on a show right now. Okay. Bye. And you all know Vale is a great artist.
Yeah.
I've worked with him on many projects over the years.
Indeed. So did you well, first there's 2 things I want to know about. One, you talk about the importance of good names, because you have good strong names here. And And two, talk to me about axe fighting, and if you did any reading on that.
Excellent. All right. Henry Gunn was the name Ben came up with because it's the name of an actual ancestor of his. And Sirah. Rathgar I came up with by myself. Names are supremely important, and nobody emphasizes that more than Charles Dickens. When you think of Charles Dickens, you think the strength of his characters' names, like Oliver Twist, Ebenezer Scrooge, Uriah Heep, Mrs. Micawber. He was very careful choosing his names, and they're important. I write hard-boiled crime fiction too, and my protagonist's name is Josh Pratt. And the reason that's his name is because I was riding into town one time when I was in Wisconsin, and I passed a roadside memorial to a cyclist who had died right there, and his name was Josh Pratt, so I adopted that name for my own. But I read a lot of hard-boiled fiction, and they give the guys manly names like Stone, Michael Stone, you know, and I can tell you how often I've seen that name, Michael Stone, over and over again, many places for protagonists. Who's the guy that wrote Will? G. Gordon Liddy. He wrote a series of novels featuring Michael Stone, and then James Bond. And Ian Fleming said that he got that name off of an ornithologist list.
Mm-hmm.
And he chose it because it just struck him as the most bland and undistinguished name he'd ever seen. And that just goes to show you the power of storytelling, because now James Bond signifies to us a sleek, sexy spy, an international hitman, you know, for king and country. So names are important.
Okay. Talk to me about axe fighting.
Axe fighting. I know nothing of axe fighting. I've been training in the martial arts for 40 years, and we do quite a lot of stuff with knives and sticks.
Okay.
And I always imagined that if I got in a sword fight or a blade fight, well, if you're going to get in a blade fight, you don't want to get in a blade fight because you're going to get cut. But I would use the patterns I've learned. You know, whether it's a sword or an axe, I would just use the patterns I've learned.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of thought behind the action sequences. I choreograph them carefully. I never let the artist, I never write Hulk swings fist and 5 people fly off the panel head first. You have to choreograph those action sequences so they're dynamic, exciting, and yet credible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that you've studied martial arts really helps here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is. I mean, I like this page.
Yeah, me too. Although supposedly this kind of hand-to-hand melee is easily the most dangerous kind of combat there is.
Yeah, I remember what I was going to say. I have a friend.
I heard someone, I think it was the Critical Drinker, criticizing a movie for that because, you know, the general was actually in the middle of the melee, and he's like, this is the most dangerous kind of combat there is because, you know, just one quick blade swing the wrong way and that's it. You know, you may, in the middle of the fight, you may be completely winning and someone, and, you know, so that's why generals were always in the back directing and never usually in the fight.
Well, yeah, sometimes, but on the other hand, a lot of great military leaders says, I can't expect my men to do that. What I'm not going to do, and they led their troops into battle.
That's true.
Like Caesar.
Yeah. So I have a friend who trained in Krav Maga, and he said sort of the basic rule of thumb if with knives and guns is you run from a knife or you charge a gun.
Well, I'm going to run from both.
Well, he said because like a gun, if you can run and they'll just take aim and you're dead, right?
Well, yeah, but if it's a pistol, I mean, it ain't that easy to hit somebody who's running.
Actually, notoriously inaccurate. There was a study done, and then they do this every so often about how accurate actually police officers are with their pistols, and even at a range of like 6 feet. They miss something like 50% of the time. It's just, you know, because, you know, not only because you look, pistols are not as accurate as rifles to begin with. And then, you know, when the adrenaline's pumping and everything else, and, you know, just the slightest movement of your hand with the pistol, and it changes the trajectory of the bullet immensely.
Sure, but then there's also the fact that a lot of them don't really want to kill people, right?
Well, that too.
I mean, I would just bet if you looked at military and combat, you have a higher percentage.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Well, I don't know about not with pistols. I mean, I've had military guys tell me, they were firing their pistol. Back when I was working for Investors Business Daily, we had this series on war heroes from the Gulf War. And they would tell me, firing the pistol, that's got to be the most useless thing you can do. So I don't know. It probably, yeah. Anyway, okay, let's move on here to this piece of art, which is also very, very nice.
Dark and brooding.
Yeah, Jordy's just a genius. This art just has, it's like the first time you saw Steranko or Neil Adams.
Yeah. He's damn good.
And this scene is...
it looks like Sirrah trying to make it through the Viking armada.
Oh, okay. All right.
And what happens is she shows up in this strange ship and everybody's just so stunned that they stopped fighting for a minute and let her pass through.
Okay, yeah. All right.
She kind of wrong foots them.
And this is one of the bad aliens, right?
I think so. Yeah, I can tell by the hand.
And
look at those fingers.
Bad aliens, and again, it's the Ashkenazi.
No, not the Ashkenazi. The Anunnaki are the good aliens, and the bad aliens are the lesser skin.
Okay. Yeah, and I like this.
So, sounds like lizard skin, basically.
Yeah, and a huge, just the guy. He's like something a fish that you've speared. I mean,
yeah,
it's just you gotta love Jordy's art.
He does very good. That guy scares me.
Oh, the Lizardson, yes, thank you. 38. Well, they're all 38 is a very inaccurate pistol. Yes. All pistols are inaccurate to a degree. Anyway, okay.
Thank you, Gary.
Got any other art here? No, I do not. Let's see here. Well, why don't we get started? Anything else you want to say about your about OffWorlder, Mike?
Well, I just want to say that it's better than anything Marvel or DC are putting out right now, both in story and art.
Yeah.
And thank you for the time.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. All righty. Well, why don't we move on to Iseult first by Peter Seckler. This is kind of I guess you'd call it epic fantasy mixed with werewolf kind of story. And the main character, her name is Iseult, and she lives in a village that is under attack by these very, very odd creatures. And the story begins with her in the woods. She's looking for her friend. And these things here, known as the Scourge, are actually the creatures.
Yeah, I was impressed by the art.
Do tell.
Well, this guy's got a unique vision here. And who is the artist?
That is a good question. Hang
He's
on.
also the writer.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's got, you can tell that he's got an aesthetic. And by that, I mean, he's consistent. He knows what he's doing.
Okay.
And some of the designs are very intriguing, like particularly on this page, that lower thing when these monsters coming out of the woodwork. That's unique. I've never seen that before. It's something fresh.
I think Peter Seckler not only wrote it, he actually, I don't see an artist listed here. So
he did everything.
Okay.
There's a couple of things about the art. One, at least some of the panels remind me of woodcuts, and that's a good thing. The other thing is that there's a artist writer who I very much like, named Mark Oakley, and he's done a couple different series, including Thieves and Kings, and I wonder if he's influenced by this, because some of the art seemed very reminiscent of that. I like it. It's a sort of fantasy type art that it works very well for what he's doing. I think it was a little rougher up front and got better as he went. by the time you get to issue 3, he's a better artist than he was in issue 1. That's good.
Well, as you can see, Peter is listening and commenting, so we can ask him if he was influenced by that artist.
Yes, Mark Oak was his sort of nom de whatever.
Well, the art reminds me of kind of the underground comics of the 60s and 70s. I mean, it's kind of like that a little bit, and especially the Scourge right here. I love the eyes, and it just looks like
yeah, it does have that undergroundy feel.
Yeah.
I think that the weakest part of this comic is the lettering, and some of it's competent, and some of it is not great. And some of it sort of conforms to what you'd expect. This page gets closer to it than most, but like the bubbles aren't they're not actual bubbles, and it seems like he just sort of drew them a freehand in some cases, and that it doesn't work very well. So I'm gonna have to knock this one for the lettering. So I think the lettering on this page is fine. The story is interesting enough, but I want to see more. What did you think of the characterization, Mike?
Well, I think the character is interesting. I mean, Iseult, she has the ability. She turns into a werewolf unbeknownst to her, and she does have a character flaw. She can very easily, just lose it, and instead of acting rationally, she acts on instinct.
Yeah.
And almost what happens here until a older, more experienced werewolf called Silverclaw sneaks up on her, grabs her friend gets away.
Yeah.
And takes her to, oh boy, I can't remember the name of the place, but it's some other realm, and she gets training from someone called Daphne. All right. And so, but later on, I believe at the end of issue 3, that weakness comes back, and it actually works to her advantage, but it's going to come back probably to, in a bad way. Also, what I like is that, well, for example, you do have a splash page here, and this is actually very good. I like it because it looks like the werewolf's trying to cast a spell on itself so she can change back. It's kind of you've got kind of a dance effect here, but the hands are kind of clenched like this, so like it's a dance, but it's struggle. What I don't like on this page is some of the dialogue boxes here.
Yeah.
It's because you should just, if you want a dialogue box, stick it here very much at the bottom, where you don't have anything going on, because the dialogue box is getting in the way of the splash page. You want to see the full figure here.
Yeah. The other thing is just that there's I guess he's gone. One of the things that Mike talks about is show don't tell, and there's a little bit too much telling rather than showing in some of this. The other thing is just that some of the characters, I think you can make the case that you end up caring for the main character, okay, but some of these characters you don't, and there just wasn't enough time invested in making us care about them.
Yeah.
And I think that's not a good part of the storytelling here.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way. I felt that way most about Silvertooth. I mean, he was okay. You can certainly have characters that are in and out.
He's basically Yoda.
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, he's like the elder guide that leads the hero for part of the quest.
But some of the other characters, like, here we've got you're bringing in the main villain, whose name is I believe is it Kyknos or Kyknos, and someone who, well, this is not the main villain. But they basically the villains here want to get rid of their village, and
yeah,
it's like I don't know, urban renewal. And
yeah, but you don't really understand why, except that there seems to be
is the Kick Nose. All righty, Kick Nose. Kick Nose.
There seems to be like a conflict between sort of a more technological people and sort of these villagers.
Yeah, because the main villain's name is the Master Programmer. We haven't seen
the
Master Programmer.
And so this villain has all these robot things, right? But then it also has what's like a pterodactyl.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting mashup that you didn't expect, I guess.
Yeah. And let's see. Do I need to back up? No, I don't think I need to back up here. But the character here, you do kind of care about this guy because he's very much, you see him.
They did enough work on him to make you care.
You see, the friend thinks that Iseult is dead. He's comforting her, and then tells her, please go comfort Iseult's parents, and then he's running off to fight the battle. And so he's compassionate, but then later on, you see this is when Iseult and Daphne come back and they find that her village has basically been trashed now. And a lot of people are dead. But here he is, with bringing Iseult's mom to see Iseult, and they found the survivors. So he, definitely you care about him. I think you also care about the friend too. I mean, she's clearly distraught about her friend, and then just overjoyed when she comes back. I
wasn't really on board there, but I do what you're saying about the captain guy.
Yeah. Let's see what else. And then, here's kind of where the art, I think, needs some work. Like,
okay, but look at that. That lettering is atrocious at the top of the page.
Okay.
That is bad lettering. I think that's probably as much as you can get, but it's like they're not well-formed balloons. I don't know. That's just not good lettering.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe have Jason Meadows, my letterer, do the lettering next time. He comes cheap.
Sure.
I mean, he's very good, and he can probably get you the lettering you want.
Or you can use lettering programs that can come up with something that is better than this.
I'll agree that the bubbles here, they're all scrunched together. There should be a little space between them at least. So yeah, here's kind of
the bad thing about that is it's detracting from this is actually a pretty good page otherwise in terms of its layout and the contrasts.
Well, here's one of my big things with art is movement, and because obviously comic books, unlike film, it does not move. So the characters, you really need to draw them. The one here at the bottom, like the lower half, it looks like he's moving. The upper half, the sword looks, he's holding still. The shield, he's holding still. I think the sword needs to be drawn back, and the shield needs to be kind of coming around, make it like that.
You can improve that, but the first two panels are pretty good.
Yes, agreed.
And I think that the lettering detracts from the goodness of those panels, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Because if he's going after the demon, he's going to be. You want the sword back to strike. It's looks like he's going after him, and it's more moving. Charles, I have to wait. Okay, and then here compare this panel at the bottom, which is really a dynamic panel.
I'm not able to see it as well on my screen because you have this comment that comes up.
Okay,
it's in the way for me.
Let me pull the comment down here.
Okay,
look at this panel at the bottom here. I mean, this is really dynamic. Very good movement. Looks like he's leaping through the air. Just I'm not sure what these lines coming out here are, but it's a nice background. Just everything is good about
it's actually lines that highlights just the central figure.
Yes, absolutely. And the mouth is wide open, the ears are back, in a threat posture. It's just, this really, really works. And the only thing you might want to do here is maybe move the tail up a little bit, because that's also a threat posture.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
But again,
we're demeriting this for the tail.
But it's not something that you immediately notice. I didn't. When I first saw this panel, I'm like, yeah, this really works. It took me a little while to think about the tail, but that's not huge. Everything else in this panel, you really nailed this panel.
Yeah.
Compare it. Well, this panel actually isn't. No, this panel isn't bad either. Kind of beginning to get enraged here. Yeah. I mean, this panel works pretty much. Could use maybe a little more movement. Maybe the back bent back a little more. Like she's in anger.
There's a transformation that goes on here, right? Or am I wrong about that?
No, there is a transformation.
So she's she's going from human to. She's going from human to werewolf to super werewolf. No. This ain't no Teen Wolf.
Yeah. Alrighty. Now here's kind of where the art, I'm talking about movement. I mean, he's supposedly just scratched the face of Kick Nose here, obviously, or the face, the face, and the movement here just, it's just not super dynamic. I mean, the hand almost, the arm right here almost doesn't look like it moves very much. Again, the same here. I think what you kind of need to do is this panel here to make it work probably needs to be stretched across the full page all the way to the right, so that the hands, really all the way out. So
what you're saying is you only need the first panel. You could do away with the second panel.
Yeah, you probably could.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
I
like the third. I like the third panel tolerably well.
What I would have done.
I especially like the whole hey, I'm all of a sudden defending myself, and you tend to do defensive things like this.
Yeah. Well, I think what I might have done is maybe take this panel first and move it up. So, he's now in a defensive, move this to the top.
Okay.
I'm coming down, but the fist needs to go further down a little bit, like really full on punch.
Okay.
And
so you start with the defensive, and then he clocks him.
I would have just gotten rid of this panel, and this panel needs to be, if you're going to go with the panel here at the top right, it needs to go, be at least two, it needs to go further down, so you can reach up further with the wolf. You're going to go this one if you'd rather go with this, and you can do either of them second, and
you want to mute yourself and deal with that, and I'll talk about this for a minute.
Yes, Charlie. Okay. And so those are the main things. I mean, just needs some better movement. But again, he tells me that that this is his first effort, and this is a really good first effort. I mean, I enjoyed reading it, and there's still a lot of good art like this right here, and I'm gonna. Hey, Jeremy, why don't you talk
about yourself, and I'll talk for a while. Hi, guys. We're on the let's not think about what's happening right now break. Yeah, I mean, I really do wonder if this was influenced by Thieves and Kings and other stuff that Mark Oakley or Moke did. I really like that comic quite a bit. I think that was a little more well thought out than this. But what I like is that you have 3 issues of this guy who did it all himself, sitting down and saying, I want to tell a story. I want to tell a compelling story. And I need to learn how to do that. And he's learning as he goes. He gets to be a better artist as he goes. I think he's a slightly better storyteller as he goes. He's funny, not like crazy funny, but there's definitely jokes here and there that I laughed at. I did enjoy this. I didn't expect to. you know, when Doc sent this to me, I just thought, oh dear. Okay. Well, you know, the rule is that I get one pick now every week, and Doc gets one pick, and this was his call. And I thought, you know, Doc had saddled me with something that I wasn't going to like, and you know, that's fine. You don't like all the comics you read, but I did. I liked this one. And Doc is now back.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too, and you know, I'll say that this is not my favorite kind of art, but I did like it. You know, and it's not you know, and again, he's got the story. The plot is pretty simple. You know, it's a woman who can change into a werewolf, and she wants to defend her village, her family, her community. You know, it's pretty simple and easy to follow. And you know, which is always a good start. You know, and again, he said that this is, you know, his first effort. He only started making comics last year. This is a good first effort. I mean, you know, I just, it's not, in other words, I'm not looking at this saying, find something else to do. You know, I'm looking at this and saying, keep going, because you're only going to get better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there are things obviously we pointed out quite a few things to improve. The other thing is that I would say that the villain in this case, you know, the pterodactyl villain, the motivation is just, I don't know. Obviously, this is a henchman said to do certain things, and but then decides to kind of go off and freestyle it, and the reasons for that are, you know, basically this pterodactyl is just malicious. But in a kind of a silly way. And I didn't like that. So I work a little bit more on the motivation of villains going forward as well.
Yeah, but I mean, he does. The one thing I like about the pterodactyl, you know, he's supposed to just raise the village, and then he comes back to get the survivors, which
I will kill you too.
Yeah, so clearly there's some, but you know, clearly there's going to be some tension, it looks like, between Kicknose and the master programmer, which is, you know, the other thing it shows for first effort, he's got a bit of a subplot going on, which is, you know, not something you really expect necessarily from a first timer, because, you know, subplots get, you know, you're talking about intricacy and you know, it's just it is you know, again, just shows potential.
Yes.
Okay.
Burst to the brim with potential. There we go.
Yes. So Peter, you know, really good first effort. I enjoyed reading it, and I would recommend that. You know, to anyone who wants this, I would again encourage them to back it on Indiegogo. It is worth it, and believe me, there's so much.
What's the price point on this one, Doc?
Good question. Let me check. The price point was hang on. Price point $5 for the digital copy, $10 for the physical. Well worth it.
All right, and the digital is it's 3 issues, so it's $5 for 3 issues. How many? What's the total page count? Do you know or not?
Total page count was right around 40 something, as I remember.
I mean, I'll see if I can look it up here.
Yeah, 44 pages.
Okay, so they're short issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still 40. You're getting 44 pages for, you know, $5 to $10. So that, I mean, that's a good.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good amount for that price. So. Yes, plus shipping and handling. Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Thank you. There we go. All righty. Let's move on to the middle-aged sword troubles. And
if you've got to deal with something, I can tell a funny story for a second here. Okay. So I was looking for my copy of The Middle Age, which I did find. But as I was looking for my copy of The Middle Age, I reached in and I pulled it out of the shelf. And I saw another book appeared. because it was shoved in, kind of behind it a little bit. And the book is called Misplaced. So I just thought that was funny and should share. But since he's not back yet, Misplaced is it's a Arcana comic, and I haven't read it yet. Looks fun enough, so I will read it at some point. I have hundreds of comics that I haven't read. Did I just confess that on the air? It is true. I do. I have hundreds, and I don't just mean comics. I mean I have hundreds of graphic novels that I haven't read. So in this time of our social isolation, it's time for me to read. And that's good. It's a thing that we can do to know that we're not alone or something. And he's not back yet. I'm not good at juggling. Otherwise, I'd juggle. But did you guys see the Todd McFarlane was talking about jugglers and how they have it doesn't matter how competent a juggler is, they have they figure out what their maximum number of balls they can keep in the air is, and that's the number of ball juggler they are. And McFarlane, for his own projects, he talked about how he's a 5-ball juggler, meaning he can keep 5 things going at once. But any more than that, and it all comes crashing to the ground. And so if he's going to pursue one major opportunity, he has to let something else go. And I thought that was very wise. So I just thought I'd pass on the Todd McFarlane's 5-ball juggling advice.
All righty, I'm back. Let's get on with Sword Troubles. This is one of those. I mean, this is someone who not only has talent but a lot of experience, and it's obvious because you've got something original. You've taken kind of the King Arthur story here, and you've modernized it and turned it into a comedy, and it works in so many different ways. Let me get this down.
This was nominated for both a Ringo and an Eisner.
I'm not surprised because it is very good. Why don't you just give us a little on the plot here, Jeremy, and then we'll move it along.
Okay, so you have a Sir Quimp is the name of this knight, and he goes into a dragon's den, what it looks like a dead dragon's den, and he finds a sword that he is going to pull out to go on his noble quest to save his true love. So that's how it opens. But this it is a comedy, among other things. It has drama, it has comedy. But it turns out the sword is it's a magical sword called Maledicta that talks, and that is very sarcastic, among other things.
Yeah.
And it ends up going into him. And he's still alive. And he goes, well, how am I still alive? Well, it's because it's a magical sword that's able to keep him alive. And this knight and this sword that's sticking out of him, it basically becomes a buddy cop type story, except it's a knight and his sword.
Yeah, and I mean the guy is drawn. Sir Quimp is drawn so well. First of all, I love the shape of the head. It goes up kind of to a point that implies that he's not the sharpest. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed. The sharpest tool in the shed in this case is the sword.
Yes,
but he's also rotund, which is not unintentional because it sets up a lot of jokes. Like this page here, he says, "I can't run like this." He's actually being chased by the skeleton of this dragon that he pulled the sword out of, and he says, "I can't run like this." And the sword says, "Like what? Like you were created in God's image. If God were a potato, like a sheep's bladder full of spoiled mayonnaise and old teeth rolling down a hill, like a centaur walking on his hands." And he replies, "For a sword, you really know how to hurt a guy." The sword replies, "It's a gift."
Yeah. The back and forth between these two is just wonderful.
Oh, yeah. "Am I going to die? Your heart looks exactly like a loaded baked potato, so I'd say yes. I I mean, am I going to die from having a sword sticking half out of my chest? I see myself as sticking half into your chest, but that's me. I'm an optimist.
Yeah. and he originally did all of these as each page was its own freestanding comic strip that added up to a larger story.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very much influenced by the whole comic strip idea of
Yeah.
almost all of these. There is a punchline at the end of the whatever number of panels on the page. That there's at the end of it, it's something funny or sometimes profound, but usually funny.
Yeah. And turns out the dragon's just trying to, say I'm protecting you. And the blade maledicta is cursed. That's crazy. Are you telling me that a curse killed Sir whatever, the
redacted?
The redacted, and he has one that's in cursive, the cursive, the bold,
Yeah.
And Prince, whatever, the hastily scribbled, yeah, both were killed on Tuesday, exactly 13 years apart. Coincidence. Everybody dies on Tuesdays by roving bands of ducks. Okay, that is unusual. Who later claimed the sword made me do it. You're cursed? I prefer the term metaphysically challenged.
Yeah.
There's so much of this. And what I like about this is the sword does not, he gets the upper hand most of the time. But what Conley does here is he does give Sir Quimp just enough to shove it back in the sword's I don't know, I guess a sword, I don't know, sword face, but he does, like, for example, I'll move ahead here just a little bit. He says, what you got there? It's my to-do list. The sword says it's not a to-do list, it's a suicide note, because what's he trying to do here? He's trying to rescue his love from dragons. And then the sword starts, giving him a lecture, and he says, what are you writing? And he says, I'm adding purchase soundproof scabbard to the list. So yeah. He gives a little bit, he gives some of it back, and it works very well, I think. So
yeah.
And then there's this other thing, like there's this stand aside. You have to look at some of these, but when this thing, kind of dead knight with a or whatever it is with a skeleton, and the crown is missing up here of his skull. I don't understand a word it's saying. Not surprised. He's speaking Gothic, and you actually have to spend a little time reading the font, because some of it's not easy to read. It's a nice effect.
Yeah,
and, it's quite.
No, they literally they tell font jokes that work in this comic.
Yes, and it works very well. And then it turns out that the sword actually works better when whoever the possessor of it is unconscious.
Yeah.
So it says the magic sword Maledicta has all these names, but the most fearsome is all the dancing sword of death.
Yeah.
he's slicing off heads while doing choreographed.
Oh yeah.
It's yeah.
I could be wrong, but I think that this page is what's one of those that's unique to this collection. Most of these are, they are web comics that you track from. I think he does one a week. But for the collection, I think he added a couple like this. But you can go, look at it and read the web comic and just decide if you want to pick up the collection. And my guess is you're going to want to pick up this collection. It's beautiful. It's really nice. They're hardcovers. The price isn't too bad. You can get them on Amazon as soon as we go back to normal.
Yeah, whenever that is.
And I very much advise people to add this to your collection. Let's see if I can. There we go.
Well, yeah, and I mean this is the other thing I like is he has actually it's not just a comedy. I mean it is, obviously.
It's a dramedy.
And he actually adds some subplots in here, and two of them, so it gets kind of intricate.
Yeah.
For example, the king has actually forbidden Sir Quimp to go on go after the dragons, and Sir Quimp has said, go take a flyer, and now the king is after him. He has put up wanted posters, and of course he says the sword says, I wouldn't worry about it. Why? Because most people ignore banner ads. No, basically because the guy in the poster actually looks really good, and hence he looks nothing like you. More sword him. But
Yeah.
there's this tension, and it looks like the king is in some way in league with the dragons. There's a hint to that when he stabs the king. The sword drinks the king's blood and says, this tastes awful, and then later remembers it tastes like a dragon. So, so yeah, here's the he's running up against the king, and yes, there is a wizard, and yes, there is a duck who wears a crown in it. One of the funniest parts is where the wizard, to try to get away from the king, he creates a magic portal, and Sir Quimp gets stuck in it.
Yep. But it kind of reminds you of Winnie the Pooh there, right? Where he got stuck in his, yeah.
Yeah. And then, so, he's trying to get out one side. The king's men are trying to pull him in the other.
Yeah.
And then the wizard, to try to solve it, feeds him a piece of cake, which makes him huge and fat. And so he's even more stuck. And then he gives him some magic potion to turn him into a hero. And he gets pulled back into the other side. But what does the potion turn him into? A woman.
Yeah.
And all the men are now running around going, I'm confused.
Yeah.
Which, I think that's a tad bit of social commentary there, don't you think?
It could go a couple of ways.
Man turning into a woman and everyone else is confused.
You're like, what? What just happened?
Just maybe a little bit there.
Maybe.
Subtle. Actually pretty subtle, because you don't,
But even if it wasn't, it's really fun.
It is. At any rate, the duck plays a role. He comes across these baby dragons, and this is another great part. There are these dragon hunters who are actually after the baby dragons. They're about to get in a fight, and so the knight, Sir Quimp, realizes if I start knocking myself on the head with a rock, maybe I'll become unconscious, and it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Yes, buddy. Hey, Charles, let's not do this.
Are we lighting matches? Okay. Like, I don't recommend that you let your kids play with matches while you're doing your show. It's usually a bad idea. But I'm joking. I don't think that's actually what's happening. But if it turns out that it is, it's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that I recommended this book. This is my pick this week. I really like this. I backed they've had I think 2 campaigns on Kickstarter. I didn't back the first one, but got a copy, and the second one I backed, and then got the digital of it. Do you have anything else you want to say about this one, Doc?
Just really quickly, the other subplot here is the thing with the skull. The skull got cut off. He comes back with this bull's head attached. The head gets cut off. They both, and then he knocks the other guy unconscious, and the swords are talking to each other. And the book has been found, and he's like, it's called the Absentia Senecon, and at last we can finally be free. So there's something going on with the swords too, which is another little subplot that's in there. And the last thing is, this was the last page. It was only, other than the guy dancing with the sword, this was the only splash page in there. This is beautiful.
Yeah,
this is unbelievably, just really flew right out at me. Last page, a great way to end this issue 1.
You want to know what comes next?
Yes, you do, and so in so many ways. You want to know what ends up being the relationship between the sword and Sir Quimp. What's going on? What's about to happen here with these 3 dragons coming in? What's up with the king? What's his relationship to the dragons? And then what's this book that or scroll or whatever the swords have found, and they can be free. Just so many things you want to see, and it is such a wonderful comic book. When I get a chance, I'm going back on Amazon. I assume issue 2 is available.
It will be soon, yeah.
If not, yeah. At any rate, the link for it, the Amazon link, is in the description below, as is the one for Iseult, mine, and Tilt, and OffWorlder. Yeah, this was just such a wonderful comic book, and this is better than anything I have seen from Marvel or DC or Valiant or anything in quite that certainly lately.
Yeah.
Just
It's really good.
well constructed.
Yeah.
So, all righty. Anything else, Jeremy?
I don't think so. Let's go away and come back next week fully charged.
Thank you very much, everyone who tuned in. And yeah, we will see you next week. Take care. Be safe.
Yeah. Still